Thank you guys all for coming to the Anchor Gardens um, herb workshop. And we have great speakers tonight in our Anchor Garden group. Tiffany, I hope, is going to go first. And she's from Eagle River, of course, because cool people live there. And then Liz is going to go, and I'm just going to kind of, I don't know, show you all my terrible herbs. Well, they're not so terrible. I got new ones, but anyway, we'll talk about them when we get there. Tiffany, let's start. Tell us a little bit about you. I don't know you very well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany. Me and my husband just recently moved back out to Eagle River. I grew up out in Eagle River, and my husband's family actually homesteaded out in Eagle River many, many years ago. So kind of getting back out to our roots here. So I'm kind of getting resettled, so I'm not super situated on my gardening game so far, but I do have, a few things. But yeah, I work for the municipality of Anchorage, and yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Great. Good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you as well. So one of my favorite things to grow is these chives.
Oh, yeah.
So I always start everything indoors. But one thing I like about these chives is I transplanted them outside and they come back every year. And if I don't get around to using them, they have a really pretty purple flower on them, so they look pretty regardless. So that's always nice. And then the other thing I like to do is cilantro. And again, I'll start them inside and then just kind of plant them outside and let them go crazy. And those are probably my two go-tos.
Yeah. So how do you keep your, wait, I don't want to interrupt you if you're going to
No, go ahead.
Okay. My cilantro, I can't, it bolts outside. I've been putting it in the greenhouse and I just keep chopping it off, but I don't know if it's going to live.
I haven't had a problem with it bolting off. I don't know what I'm doing or not doing, but yeah, I do cut it off, but it does really well.
Well, this is the first summer it's gotten new leaves. I keep trying it and I'm not very good at it. I can't hear you, Liz.
You're muted.
Tiffany, do you know what seeds you use to grow that? Maybe you have a better seed.
So for the chives or the cilantro?
The cilantro.
So they're Hume, Hume, organic seeds.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try Hume. Maybe I'll even go down and get some tomorrow or something and see if they.
Me too, because mine always bolt partway through. I do have them, though I always leave them a bunch of them to produce seed at the end of the season. And so they do come back. That's nice to have them come back as a, seed reseeding.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Okay, anything else, Tiffany? Are you good?
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Liz, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So when Cindee asked me to do this, I said, why me? But anyway, I agreed to do it. And there were 5 plants that came forward and wanted to be a part of this discussion. They wanted to let us know that they're very useful for us in this time. And, it was rose, nettle, lemon balm, dandelion, and nasturtium. And they wanted us to be using them because they are very supportive of us in this time, with COVID happening and people having, a lot of stress and anxiety and all the changes. So anyway, I'm going to talk about those. I might only get through rose and nettle, but anyway, you guys pipe in whenever you want to add something or say something. The first thing I want to say is it's really wonderful when you start communing with plants. Like you can just by saying hi or hello, and in that way you can begin to engage with a plant, and something just shifts when you do that. You know, if you just do it without any expectations, just like an experiment. And anyway, when you include that engagement, uh, you know, something shifts. It's just different, and um, so much different than if you act like there's no consciousness, whatever, like in the plant or in the earth. And you'd be very surprised, you know, how much plants will talk back to you if you know, say hi and ask them. One of my favorite questions is, what are you aware of that I'm not aware of? And then just blank your mind and listen to what they might say back. Sorry, my nose is running. Sorry. But anyway, they are sentient beings, and you can get a ton of information from them. Like if you see a plant that's looking really wilted and, you know, not looking good, you can just ask, you know, what energy is this? What energy are you being here? And eventually, if you don't already, we all have the capacity, you know, you can hear back from them. And then when we're picking plants, it's great to greet them, you know, ask them if it's okay to pick, and, you know, you get, so you can just know which ones you can pick and which they might not want you to pick. And then always have gratitude for whatever you take, and never take all of it, which you've probably all heard before. Um, and plants, I mean, herbs have so many gifts. I mean, a single herb can have like 25 chemical constituents, phytochemicals, which seems insane, but they often have even opposite polarities. So like if an herb is a sedative, it can also have stimulant qualities, and that can create a feedback loop in your body. I don't know exactly how that works, but somehow between the plant and your body, they can make this communication. And if your body like is taking it to be sedated, and it gets too sedated, then the plant and the body somehow can kick in the stimulant aspect, which is really wonderful and kind of amazing. And anyway, they just have so much to give us. And you know, some herbalists work with only like 7 plants, and they get those 7 plants to do everything they need them to do. And then there are some herbalists who only work with the energy of the plant. They don't even work with you know, people actually using the plant physically. And also, plants act differently, herbs do, whether it's an essential oil or whatever, in different people. You know, for some people, like birch is a pain reliever, and for others, it isn't. Um, so anyway, that's something to be aware of. And then the first one that I wanted to talk about was rose. And, you know, rose is, you know, associated with love, and I think particularly self-love too, which is a great thing for us to give ourselves, is to, you know,
Liz,
nurture
I'm
ourselves.
sorry to interrupt you, but did you
Yeah.
want me to share the pictures now?
Oh yeah, could you please? Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's do the books first. So go ahead.
Okay.
Books. So let's see.
Here's my poor looking thing. Come on, go to the top.
I'll show on, oh yeah, go ahead. On the screen, this is if you want to learn about book. Okay, we'll start with that one. This is Jenna Schofield's Discovering Wild Plants, which is for the Alaska and the Pacific Northwest. It is so full of information, it's unbelievable. Okay, madam, next.
Next.
Okay,
Right.
then she has another book entirely, it's just a little book, but it is entirely on nettles, which we're going to talk about, which is amazing that you would have a whole book just on nettles. That's how amazing nettles are. I don't think I see this book, Cindee. This one
I think I got
is,
it finally. Here we go. Nope.
Well, that's another one. I don't know a lot about that book, but that book looks like it has a lot of local information in it that could be great. The Boreal Herbal. And I haven't actually really used it. I've had it for a long time and I haven't used it. And then the other book I wanted to show you guys is this one. It's Rosemary Gladstar, and it's herbal recipes for vibrant health. This is great. It tells you really simply how to do infusions, how to make salves, and it has a little bit about each herb, and it has just chock full of all kinds of information. So I think this is a great book for anybody who's beginning to, or even more advanced in working with herbs. And then the Discovering Wild Plants is just by Jenna Schofield. It's just a great book for Alaskan plants. Next. Thank you. There's Rose. Okay, so anyway, it desires very much to gift to us in this time. And, you know, Rose is very much associated with the emotions and spiritual things, and physically, it's a heart strengthener. And it's great for like as an antidepressive and as an aphrodisiac. And it's great for also for skin healing, skin regeneration, and it's very emollient, moisturizing. It's also a sedative, and it is a tonic herb, which means it has overall benefits, but it's a tonic particularly for the heart and the liver, and a sexual tonic. And, you know, some people, when they talk about Rose, they say something like, you know, it will awaken the goddess within, and that it's, I can't remember who said this, but they said its fragrance accompanies the visitation of angels. But anyway, there's so many things you can do with Rose. Like you can put it in salads. Can you show the salad picture? I think it's two more. There's the rose hips, of course. There's my daughter with a salad with, you know, flowers in it, and part of those there's roses in there. But a lady from Iran that I met made the most incredible salad. She had almost every herb in there, fresh, that you can imagine, and chopped up lettuce and small pieces, and a vinaigrette dressing. And then she also put rose petals all over it. It was so delicious. And then, of course, you can make teas with rose, which are, you know, very self-loving, self-nurturing teas. You can also infuse rose petals in cold water with lemon and honey and make kind of a julep. Yeah, it's kind of ahead there.
Here it is.
Yeah, we're not, well, I guess, well, can you go back one? There's rose petal. Oh, there's rose honey. You can make rose honey, you know, by or rose syrup. And there's several ways to do it. You can look it up online, but you can, you know, warm up honey, not hot, because you want to keep all the good enzymes, but just warm it up and put a whole bunch of roses in a glass jar and just keep adding more roses, more honey, more roses, more honey. And then I don't know how long you're supposed to leave it, maybe a couple weeks, but I think like with something like biscuits, I mean, that is such a heavenly gift, so nurturing to yourself or anybody that you know, care about. I also, Jenna Schofield talked about wrapping butter in rose petals for a couple days.
Wow.
And then eating it on biscuits. I mean, why not? You know, I mean, there's just so many things you can do with it. And you can make like syrups out of it, out of the hips too. And then she talked about taking the leftover hips after you've made syrup from them, which you can use on pancakes or crepes or something. I mean, ice cream. And she took the hips and ran them through. I know if you run them through, not a Cuisinart, not a Vitamix, what's the KitchenAid. And if you use the setting, if you have the extra equipment for the KitchenAid, that's for it makes making applesauce or crab applesauce so easy. It's ridiculous because it takes out all the fibrous stuff and just applesauce comes out. Well, she talked about using that, and then with the rose hips, after they're cooked, you know, after you've made syrup or something, and then making a marmalade with that, you know, adding orange and whatever you're going to add for that. And then she also talked about making a rose, in the same way, making a rose hip pie from the rose hip pulp rather than a pumpkin pie. So using basically the same things, only instead of pumpkin, using the rose hips. You do have to be careful because inside of rose hips, there are little hairs that can irritate your intestines. So you either want to pick those out or do like she said, run it through this, or in tea, like you can just use the rose hips and, you're not cutting them open. So it's fine. And anyway, you can make facial steams. You can just put a whole bunch of roses, petals, like we have our rugosa roses here that, make so many rosebuds. You can just take those petals, put them in a glass bowl, and boil some water and have a towel. And then you pour the boiling water over the rose petals and then put the towel over your head and just do a facial steam with rose.
Mm.
And it's very moisturizing. It's great for irritated skin. Oh, Jenna Schofield also mentioned that if you're out camping, you can take rose petals if you have scrapes or minor cuts, and you can moisten them a little bit and stick them onto your skin, and they'll act like a bandage. I know that rose is also very antibacterial. So anyway, you can do this. Oh, then after she said, after you take a facial steam, or somewhere I read this, then you take that water and throw it in the bathtub. So then you can have a rose bath after you've had a rose facial steam. And do not put rose petals in your bed. I've tried that, and it ends up staining the sheets. I thought it was a great idea. I had all these rose petals. Oh, I'll just sleep in roses. But anyway, that was not a good idea. But people use them for, dry them and use them for dream pillows and for sachets you can put in your, or give as gifts to put in your drawers. And one thing I like to do, can you go? Well, we can see it at the end, Cindee, because I do want to talk about this thing that you've got right there. But you can I save like little rosebuds and put them in gifts for people. So when they open up the gift, there's some tissue paper, but there's also like all these rose petals or rosebuds fall out. It just makes a really sweet gift there. It's just like super sweet, loving. But anyway, back to the distillers there. You can put a whole bunch of, this is a Meholisa distiller. You don't have to have something this fancy, but this is a way to make rose water. And so you put a whole bunch of those in, the petals, then you have the water down below and it comes up. Go back one, Cindee, will you? They're the different parts and there's the whole thing put together. Anyway, you can make rose water, but you can also do it in this next way. Keep going, please, Cindee. I feel like Vanna, would you please keep going?
Yes.
Here this is from Jenna Schofield's book, and it's just a simple way where you put like a brick in the bottom, you put all your rose petals down there and your water, and then you can see how on the top she's inverted the lid and put ice up there. So as the steam comes through the roses and goes to the top, it'll condense and then drip off into that bowl. So that's another way to make rose water. Anyway, so yeah. And then I also read we're growing them. Well, first of all, there is a place out in Palmer, these people that have fruit trees, and they sell them, I think, at the South Anchorage Market. And this lady made me aware that roses are in the same family as apples, and apparently they have all these roses, a lot of roses need support. So they have all these roses growing up their apple trees. That's something I would like to see. I think that sounds really beautiful. So also I read that to enhance the health and fragrance of roses, you can companion plant them with onions, chives, or garlic, which is also, say you had it would be a great guild. You would have your apple tree or fruit tree, and then you'd have your roses, could have wild roses or others, or the rugosa or whatever, and then you have onions, chives, and garlic, and the sulfur somehow in those onions, garlics, or chives enhances the fragrance and the vigor also of the rosebush. And one other use that was kind of sounded interesting was if you have a wart, the Athabascans insert a thorn in the wart, and in 2 to 3 days, supposedly the wart disappears. So roses are pretty amazing, and I'm sure you can think of many more things to do with them. And you just look online; there's just tons of stuff. And there's the little sachet. Yeah. Oh, next is nettle, which is just like the green goddess, green man giant of herbs. You know, it's just, like I said, Jenna Schofield wrote a whole book on it. There's just so many gifts that it has. And these are stinging nettles. But anyway, Nettle said that it's a great assistance for this time. It's super nurturing, strengthening, and invigorating for the nervous system and the physical body, and it's a cleanser. And it said, I'm here for you. And one of the things it does as a cleanser, you know, people are always telling us to eat nettles in the spring. Well, it actually stimulates your bowel to let go of the mucus lining that has accumulated there after a winter of eating maybe heavier foods. So that's pretty cool. I mean, so Rosemary Gladstar calls it, you know, a superior tonic herb as well. She said it activates metabolism by strengthening and toning the entire system. I mean, your whole body system. It's a tonic for the nervous system, the reproductive system, and a kidney tonic for vitality and energy. It's rich in vitamins, minerals, chlorophyll. It's 40% protein. You know, it's great substitute for spinach. Anything you would use for spinach, like spanakopita, or you have to cook it though, you know, because it has all those little hairs on it that will sting you and sting you in the mouth. But anyway, it's a vitamin powerhouse. It's one of the highest sources of plant digestible iron. So it's great for anemics, menstruating, and lactating women. It's the secretin in it that stimulates the bowels to slough off the mucus lining. And when you gather them, you want to gather them with gloves. And you want to, if you're picking them to eat as a fresh green, you really want to pick them when they're about 8 to 10 inches tall, or 8 to 12. And then you can just keep doing that if you have a patch of them. You can just keep doing that all summer, keep cutting them down. Even if you don't use them, you can just drop them to the ground. I have a friend who just runs her lawnmower over them when they get too far ahead of her, and then they sprout up again. It's like cut and come again greens or mesclun or something. There's this incredible sting remedy. If you do get stung by it, apparently plantain can work to take away the sting. There's a couple other things, but the best thing is to take a piece of the nettle itself very carefully so you don't get your fingers on the very edges, and you rub it in your fingers until it, you know, becomes kind of wet. And then you rub that on wherever you were stung, and it takes away the sting, which I think is pretty magical. Also, if you do greet it and you do ask permission to harvest it, and you talk to it and you say thank you as you harvest the pieces, it will not sting you. My daughter and her friend did that at school. There was a nettle patch, and all the boys were trying to get into the nettles because beyond them there were raspberries, and the girls knew how to do this, so they were able to get in there and not get stung. Anyway, you want to steam them well, or you want to dry them for any internal use. The older leaves have something that starts with a C that can irritate the kidneys. So you want to get those younger ones and keep your patch, you know, cut low so it keeps coming up again. And you want to, when you do steam them, or you want to save the juice, drink it yourself or give it to your plants. It's, you know, it got a lot of nitrogen in it. Also, Cindee and I were kind of asking, we weren't sure exactly why, but supposedly nettles and yarrow and comfrey are all great for your compost pile. And I think I heard that it's because they actually activate the pile. Anyway, somebody can check on that if they want. It is great for making pesto. If you like pull off all the leaves off the stems and steam them and squeeze all the moisture out and then put them in the like the Vitamix or something with a little olive oil and then whatever else you want to put in. And I do have a recipe in here that I think the recipe's there, Cindy. There it is. Maybe you can see the little hairs. Okay, this is a cilantro pesto, but honestly, you guys take a picture of this because it is a great recipe. I originally got it from Health Center Dentistry, and they give it to people after they have amalgam fillings removed because it's an amazing chelator of heavy metals. But you can, instead of putting in cilantro, you can put in nettle or like down below, I said I made it with do it with nettles. I've done it with arugula and nettles or just arugula with nasturtiums, nasturtium and chervil and nettle, fennel, leek, and roasted garlic, basil. I mean, it doesn't matter. And you can make it thinner if you want just by putting less of the seeds in. And I've gotten so I don't even use these seeds. I soak almonds overnight and use the almonds in it. But particularly with the cilantro, I mean, people either go insane over it, they love it so much, or if they don't like cilantro, of course, they don't like it. But I mean, almost everybody wants this recipe. Now, I have to admit, it's not as amazingly flavorful with these other ingredients, but it's still really good. And in the fall, I made a whole bunch of jars of this and put it in 8-ounce jars and filled them up and put them in the freezer. So all winter, I had all these little jars of yummy green stuff. So what, oh, it's for the tea, as a tea, it's great for the nervous system. You can combine nettle, lemon balm, oats, and chamomile as a great nervine tea. It's great for allergies and hay fever. Some people take the freeze-dried nettle capsules, or I know people who drink 2 cups a day of a tea with nettle. It has nettle, marshmallow root, and astragalus root. They drink it 2 times a day for 3 months leading up to the allergy season, and their allergies are far less. You don't want to drink it all winter because then you kind of become immune to it. And then another really yummy tonic tea that a friend of mine sent me. It is so delicious. It's nettle and tulsi, which is holy basil, rose, mint, ginger, and chai spices. It's incredibly great. Also, nettles are good for eczema. I imagine you would be like drinking a tonic of the nettles or the tea for that. I mean, maybe you'd be putting it on, applying that tea to your body too. It's also a great hair and scalp tonic. You can make an infusion of it, which is basically like making a tea. You just put nettle or whatever herb in a jar and pour boiling water over it and then let it sit. Like for tea, we generally let it sit like 3 to 5 minutes, but for an infusion, you might leave it even overnight if you wanted to, and close it and put a lid on it and make that lid tight. But anyway, and then another tonic for the scalp and the hair I heard about was you put nettles in alcohol and onions and you soak it for 2 weeks. Then you strain it and you apply it to your hair or bald spots. I don't know if I could stand maybe the onion smell, but anyway, I also, when I was researching, found out where Jenna Schofield says that a wild patch of nettles indicates good soil. And the British use those locations for orchards. And they also have a very civilized attitude toward nettles, more so than Americans, and they commonly cultivate them in their gardens. There's a companion plant book that she reported about, and she said that it says that nettles change the chemical process and the essential oil content of nearby crops. So Herb growers often mix nettle with mints or valerian or sage to bolster the essential oil content, which would essentially bolster the flavor, and the essential oil content is going to be the health benefits. It's also supposed to be, nettles are supposed to be good for the health and strawberries of the health of strawberries and tomatoes when you plant them together. They are 7% nitrogen, so I wrote down they're a compost starter. Um, as a fertilizer, they're great to use the tea, or say you steam nettles and you have the juice left over and you're going to eat the nettles, but you can take the juice and put it on your house or garden plants, and it's good for transplant shock. So you might want to dilute it a little bit and before you pour it on. And you can put a little drop of dish soap in that as well to use it as a foliar spray for aphids. And they say nettles, nettle hay, whatever nettle hay is, when fed to livestock, raises milk production and egg production and disease resistance in animals. So there we have nettle. What is our time? Do you know the time, Cindy?
Yeah, it's like 3 after 7. But I just
Oh, are
put
we
up.
supposed to stop?
No, you're good. I put up your nettle bread recipe.
Great. That is a wonderful recipe. It's incredibly great. Thank you. Then the other 3 herbs, I'm just gonna mention them briefly, are lemon balm, because it is so, are you saying something?
I think everybody, well, now our pictures are in the way, at least on my screen. I'll have
Maybe
to,
everybody left.
well, not everybody. We'll have to send this out because some of this got cut off because of the screen.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, the other 3 herbs I wanted to mention, there's lemon balm, just because it is an incredibly kind gift for the nervous system, the heart, and spirit. So it's just very relaxing, very sedating, calming. So it's great tea. You could also make it, it's also highly antiviral. In Europe, it is the treatment of choice, the essential oil of this, for herpes. You know, Europeans are much more into essential oils than Americans are. But anyway, you can make a tea, you can make a honey, you can make a syrup. But anyway, and if you're going to grow it here, you want to heavily mulch it. First of all, put it in a very ideal spot, like lots of sunshine. And if there was someplace near your foundation where it was warmer, we have had luck with overwintering it, but I mean, you have to put about a foot of mulch on it. And then we've been putting plastic, clear plastic over that. And it seems to be coming back more vibrantly that way. And if you don't mulch it, it kind of tends to not come back at all. And then the other thing was Dandelion wanted to say hi. And I was going to say Europeans also have a much more civilized attitude toward dandelions, and they intentionally imported them on the Mayflower in 1620 for their health benefits. And so it wanted to be acknowledged for its gift of exuberant good cheer and a multitude of other kind gifts, because, it's a great tonic herb, and the whole plant is restorative and regenerative. And the root stimulates liver, bile, and cleaning of the whole hepatic system. And it's a prized digestive bitter, so it's great to eat in the spring too, as well, when it comes up. You can also eat when you take when you're going to cut the greens out. If you want to remove the plant, you can actually eat that little bulb that's at the top of the root and the bottom of the leaves. That's supposed to be like a lot sweeter, not so bitter. Anyway, it's very high in minerals, and of course, a lot of people make stout and wine from it. And another thing that Leslie does is she takes a whole bunch of the flowers, pulls all the petals off, puts them in a jar, puts in some vinegar and olive oil, and puts a whole bunch of either chopped red onions in there or chopped green onions or chives. I mean, it is, and then you leave it overnight. It makes a really tasty, like, side dish. And I don't think maybe people should do that if they have problems with allergies, because that might have a whole ton of pollen in it, but I imagine it has a ton of nutrition. And also, well, Christy Wood is a wonderful recipe where she roasts dandelion root and then makes a tea by grinding it after she first roasts it for 2 hours, washes it, chops it up, roasts it for 2 hours at 250 degrees. Then she grinds it up and then she adds Christmas spices. And she says about 1 teaspoon per 1 cup of water. You know, it has a chicory flavor. She thinks it's amazing. I haven't tried it yet. And Rosemary Gladstone said, steam the leaves, marinate them overnight in Italian dressing and honey. And she said it's amazing. And then can we go on to the next one? There's nasturtium, and that wanted to say hello. It's a native of Peru. It's super rich in vitamin C, and it says it's eager to assist us now with moving energy upward and outward, with rejuvenating and regenerating, and it's exhilarating and joyful. And that's great in salads. It's great in that pesto. Meg Zolotel says she's insanely in love with nasturtium salsa. And then I also read about, you know, those leaves are spicy and really yummy, and the flowers are spicy, but they're a little bit sweeter. They have a little nectar in them, so you can put them in salads too, and like mix up your salad with the dressing, then put them on top. It's really beautiful. And then you can make potato salad with using chopped up leaves and add chives. That just sounded really good. Plus you can make capers from the seeds. Though there's some information online about some people don't think that they think that that's not safe. Well, that is all I had to say. Are there any questions or did I scare everybody away?
I don't think so. Does anybody have any questions for Liz before I start what I have to share?
I don't have any questions. That was super informative though. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys, I'm so excited for people to just, you know, have fun with these plants, just play with them.
Yeah, I was telling somebody, I don't know who, that nasturtiums are my main vegetable for the summer. I just eat them in the garden. I just eat them, eat the seeds, eat the leaves. But somebody told me at last week's thing that nasturtiums are a companion plant to attract aphids. And now I'm wondering how many aphids I've eaten over my lifetime. I didn't know.
Good nutrition. Just Americans have an attitude about eating bugs. You probably got that extra nutrition.
Anyway.
They do attract aphids, but they're good for attracting aphids rather than having them get on something else.
Right. So maybe I just don't have any aphids. Maybe I'm lucky that way in the garden. So here's my favorite perennial herb. And you can see that things have been eating it. I'm not taking care of this kitchen garden very well this spring. But this is lovage. And it's also cut and come again. So I can go out there and cut it now and cut it back, and it'll just have new leaves for me ready to eat. But it tastes like celery. And since I don't like celery, and I certainly don't like to start celery in February or whatever and baby it until the summer, I just have this perennial lovage, and I dry the leaves and put them in soups all winter long, or casseroles or anything. And I don't mind the lovage. I just don't like celery. I don't know. It's something with the texture of celery. So this is a good compromise between my husband and I. That is motherwort. And I went to see Liz last summer or something. And she said I needed to calm down. And so I looked up the herb for calming, and that's motherwort. And then I got COVID this last fall, and I hadn't done anything with them all summer. And I just threw them out the door, and there they sit, coming back again. So motherwort easily winters over. I just don't know how to use it yet. I imagine I have to dry the leaves and make it into some tea. I don't know how much or anything. So I got to look that up. But I was happy that it came back, and it's thriving outside. So even in the pot, which I was amazed at. Okay, here we come to my sad indoor little things, although the basil looks kind of okay. This is a new plant that I bought from Teresa Brown this spring. So it has a new leaf and I mean a new little section over there. So I'm hopeful. This is new from P&M Gardens, oregano. Here's my rosemary. And I have no idea what to do with it. If I should just throw it away or try to make it come back. I don't know. Most herbs do not get affected by aphids because they're, strong smelling. And I'm wondering if the aphids attack this poor little plant. I tried to zoom in as much as I could to see, but it overwintered in the solarium, which gets to about 35 degrees in there. So it wasn't mulched, and that gives you all the clues you might need to know for what's wrong with that thing and what should I do about it. Poor old rosemary.
Cindee, does it have good drainage?
Yep.
It has great drainage.
Yeah, and it's being watered by the pond water, the fish water, so it has the best water ever. So that's not it.
I would love a conversation on rosemary because I had a plant that did well for 2 years. I was able to overwinter it. It did super well the second summer. Second winter, brown crapola died. I mean, just almost immediately. I tried another
in the house.
In the house.
Huh.
I tried a second rosemary plant. Tried to overwinter it. Put it under a UV lamp or UV light. Didn't even make it through the first winter, and it starts turning brown, and it's almost instantly, like between night and day, the whole thing goes crazy. But I know, I mean, if you look at it, it's supposed to take 6 hours of light.
Oh,
the thing lives in Portland. It lives in Seattle. It grows wild. You can just pick it off, the neighbor's backyard fence. So is it light? Is it humidity?
I never thought of that. Maybe it's light. Maybe I need to put a blanket on it.
Well, another thing I was thinking, you guys, is maybe bringing it inside, like maybe that's almost a shock too. Like maybe you need to bring it in a few hours a day and then put it out and bring it in a few hours, almost like we do hardening off.
But that first winter, it did fine. I just brought it inside and kept it by the window. And granted, Cindee knows there's no light between November and January, February. So, I tried water, I tried light, I tried different things and no good. So Cindee, I would just say, don't even try to get it into bush, just use it and
I guess that's my other problem. I think secretly they know that I'm not using them anyway. I just want to say that I can grow them.
Well, but that was what I was doing. I was saving it, right? Because I wanted it to get big and bushy so I could have these big, lovely things for lamb and for, just no.
Yum. Well, Cindee, actually, there looks like there's some live green tips on this. You might pull off the drier stuff and you know what? I think you could give it some compost tea or Alaska salmon fertilizer. Well, I'm getting a yes.
I spent money on Alaska salmon fertilizer and I left it out. This was last summer. I left it out on the deck and the bear came and ate it all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, I know.
I can't compost tea.
Yeah, I'll put you on that. That's a good idea.
I'm even hearing it with like nettle water.
Metal water?
Nettle.
Oh, nettle water. That's a good idea.
After you steam the nettle.
Let me tell you my story with perennials and compost tea. I now have 2 worm boxes, one with worms that eat oatmeal and leaves and one that eat vegetables and fruit, because the worm poop, the worm castings with the vegetables and the fruit do better. They do damage to my perennials.
Really?
Yeah, it's just really weird. And so the ones with the oatmeal and the leaves, that they're more fungal and they do well with the perennials.
Well, that's cool.
It is cool, but yeah, it's more work than I really want to deal with. But anyway, I think I need to go down there and put some, yeah, go get some of that fungal worm poop, put it on
That
there.
sounds good. That sounds good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it. Yeah,
So
I
there's
think it could come
rosemary.
back.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know too.
Here's my sage, and it's growing great. This overwinters so nicely in the solarium. I don't move it out or move it in. It just sits there. And I don't eat enough sage either. I don't know. I need to actually, I'm growing them. So what? I don't use them, and that drives me crazy. I
Well,
did use some sage for Thanksgiving.
right, and with your rosemary, why don't you tell it how much, do you ever eat lamb? Tell it how much you want to put it in the lamb.
Lamb, I need to figure out a source for Alaskan lamb. We try to eat only Alaskan stuff. So how does that work out? Maybe it would taste good on goat. Maybe some baby goat would have to be killed or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or
Cindee.
wild sheep.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, wild sheep.
Yeah.
I just want to throw out, or eggs too. If you can do some pork sausage with it, that's perfect breakfast sausage.
Yeah.
Well, that's an
Sounds
idea.
great.
We got a bunch of moose sausage in there. That's pretty
Also,
salty.
Also, just when you're making potatoes, you could cut off one or two of those and crumble them on, or cut them up onto your potatoes. That'd be so delicious.
Oh, okay. We'll try that. Give me some. I think if I start using them, really, they'd feel better. Now, have you seen this before? This is Mexican oregano or Cuban oregano, and it's a succulent. And
I have not.
I know I don't eat it enough, but it just bursts in your mouth with this lemony. I don't think it tastes like oregano, but I was down at 5.2 Mile Greenhouse in Eagle River, and he's like, try this. Just take it home and stick it in a pot. And sure enough, it went crazy. The other leaves in there are amaryllis. I took the seeds off the blooming amaryllis and I just dumped them in there. And it's turned out to be a nice companion plant for the oregano. But yeah, I don't eat that one enough either. I put some in the salad a couple, like last week, and it has such a weird texture. It's just weird. So I just need to eat it by itself or figure out what it goes with. And then you can see my parsley. Can you see it? It's so sad. It grows and grows and grows, and now it's gone to seed. It's way hanging over the fish pond going, oh, nobody eats me. So I'm going to have to maybe see if these come to seed. I'm going to have to see if I can get the seed from them. I don't know. And start planting them again. But I think what?
Does this have great drainage too?
Yeah, it's a hanging pot.
So it easily, I mean, in the bottom, like I was telling you, there was a lady at the Spenard Market, this lovely lady whose name is Rose. She sells herbs, and many of them are perennial, but she emphasized, like with rosemary and with lavender, she said they do not like to have wet feet. So she said that somebody else was telling me, the solution for that, not only to put in a lot of perlite, but you could actually put perlite in the bottom of a pot, like put a couple inches of perlite, then put your soil with your plant in it. And that was actually a lady who grows streptocarpus, and she said they don't like wet feet.
Wow.
So
Well,
anyway, I don't know about, I don't think parsley's in that category, but yeah, it looks kind of sad. And you've got great light in there.
Yeah.
Are you overwatering it?
What?
Are you overwatering it?
No. If I'm doing anything, I'm not watering them enough. it's so moist in that solarium that yeah, it's really moist. I try not to water too much. I just do once a week maybe. But
Yeah,
anyway, that's my main thing. So here's my next question is when you guys dry your herbs, you put it on low. So that's my other thing is I dry them. I spend all this time doing it and then it doesn't taste that great. So I'm putting it on like 70 degrees or less. And right and I don't know, they're just not tasting very well. I can't in our house I can't dry them naturally because it's too moist and they turn moldy. I have some mint leaves in the refrigerator right now in a colander. Maybe I don't know. They're kind of drying out because of the cold. But I guess I want to know how you guys use your herbs and how you preserve them and how you make them taste good. And what's the point of growing them if you don't use them? Okay, Stephanie.
You know, I last year gave everything to my garden, and I used my dehydrator constantly all summer long. And I had, you know, one level of basil, one level of oregano, and I did that. That has been the best. And then putting it into small Tupperwares that have, you know, screw lids so that they're sealed. That has been unbelievable for usage. I did, of course, all my tomatoes and, you know, other things like that. But up until last summer when I was using the dehydrator, and it was I want to say I bought it at like Ace True Value here in Jewel. And it couldn't have been expensive because I wouldn't have bought it. So I know it was less than 200, but that was the best investment because I could get it ready. And I've had herbs drying 24 hours because I did too many, but that's the best way for me because I could set it and then walk away. And
Right.
apparently there's better pieces of machinery to buy, but I just like my little one. So I would highly suggest investing in something like that. I tried the oven, it doesn't work. I tried the microwave, it doesn't work. I tried the hanging basket, and it's just hard to get things even. And then everything's all over, and I forgot what I put on level 1 versus level 2.
Yes.
The small little, you know, I have five little round shelves, and that works really good. But up until last year, I would have told you the exact same thing. This is ridiculous. I'm growing herbs. And Cindee, I think you're doing fantastic because you were able to overwinter. And
Right.
I've never been able to do that. So I think you give yourself more credit because even though your rosemary looks sad, up until you said I overwintered it, I'm thinking, wow, how did you get that to live? You did great. You did great. Give yourself.
I guess I should think about that. But I definitely need to use them. But so I need to move one step beyond you, Stephanie, because now I have my dehydrator and I do that and it ran all summer. But I have all these cute little jars of herbs and they're sitting there that I've never used them.
Why?
I know, right? I don't know because I'm not used to it.
Are you Swedish? Are you?
Yeah. Karen.
We joke about that at home, but kind of going off of Stephanie's idea, the other thing that I've done is taking ice cube trays, if anybody has any anymore, because you know, who has ice cube trays, but chopping up herbs, putting them in olive oil and just freezing them.
That's a good, I mean, I could do that.
Because then you have the olive oil. And so if you're doing a marinara sauce, or you're doing any kind of sauce or any kind of something, soup, I make soup like nobody's business. And it always says, well, all these herbs. Well, you know, if you saute the garlic and the herbs and the olive oil that's in the ice cube tray, I mean, you're halfway there.
I like that idea. So I pull out the trays out of the dehydrator and I'm like, besides what is this? If I don't do it right away, then it re-moisturizes from the air. So yeah, that's a really good idea.
Ice cube tray in olive oil, and it doesn't totally freeze. And quite honestly, if I had smaller ice cube trays, that would probably be helpful. But I just stuff them full of parsley, I stuff them full of chives, I stuff them full of oregano because I used to grow that in the summer. And I make soup, and everything I make has some kind of herb in it somehow, and Instapot stuff, and you know, whatever. It's always calling for something. So
Yeah, it's so weird that I'll use the lovage, but I won't use anything else. It's weird. I
I
know.
guess what calls for
Well,
celery.
I find the best way for basil, this is my first time actually drying it, but the best way for basil so far has been in putting it in water and freezing it. And then you've got exactly how much you want. So that worked really well for basil for me. Not that we have a lot left over.
Well, the other thing is pesto.
Mhm.
You know, I grow basil because I love pesto. And again, it's olive oil, it's garlic, it's
Mhm.
a little bit Parmesan, it's pine, you know, whatever. It's or almonds or pine nuts or whatever you want to put in it.
Mhm.
But just freeze that, and it's
Yeah.
good for everything. And even just like an accent on a soup.
Mhm.
I
Right.
think that's a great
I
idea
think we
to
need to
put
get
in ice cube trays. Yeah.
That's a good. Go to Value Village and see what you can find. I'm gonna do that.
I have some if anybody wants.
I also make about 55 little baggies of pesto every year, and I use African blue basil, which will grow. I'm sure it's probably not the correct basil for culinary pesto, but my family loves it, and it grows really well outside. Like Mill and Feed has it every spring, and I go in there, I buy 3 plants, and it can't be grown from seed, so I just pinch off parts as they get longer, and I put them in water, root them, and then I end up with, are we done? I end up with like, are we still going, Cindy?
I think so.
Okay, I'm just seeing a funny picture. Anyway, I end up with um, gobs of basil that I can grow outside. It doesn't even grow as well in a greenhouse.
Wow.
And I take all that basil and I make pesto, but I don't bother to put in the nuts or the Parmesan cheese. So it's just garlic, salt, basil, olive oil, and a little bit of parsley. And then I store it in Ziploc bags. And then we have it all winter to, like, if we're going to make a white pizza or a green pizza, or pesto, or you can put pesto on potatoes or pesto obviously on noodles. You can put it in your soups, like Julie was saying, just if you're making, or if you're making marinara
Mhm.
sauce, just throw a bag of that in there.
Right. Yeah.
It's a good way to keep basil as long as you're happy with it having olive oil and garlic in it.
There went
But
Stephanie. We should probably honor our time and just say it
okay,
was very fun. It was a much funner, more fun um meeting than last week because there's less people and more people can talk. I like it. And with that, goodbye everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. Bye.
bye. Talk here now. Under her attention. Are we done here? Okay, it's good.